My zip code says I am on southern eastern Pomo. I don't want to mess up the pronunciation. Miwok Lake, Miwok, and Miwok Land.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mine says it has no information about.
Okay. Okay.
I got mine. Mine says that you're on the eastern Pomo and northern Pomo land.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share? We can take a few more minutes on this too.
Which is great.
I just want to say I really like this exercise. I think it's really interesting to see, and like looking at Lucerne, which is where I work, it's Shigamland. I might be saying that wrong, but I'm not even familiar with that. So that's like more information that I can go ahead and look up and learn more about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really good. It's really good for us to understand, like someone had shared with me before that they thought that a land acknowledgement was more territorial, like we were asking for them to give our land, like saying that's our land. There is a slogan out called land back, and that's something that where they're asking for, you know, like ceremonial land. But someone had said that they didn't know what land acknowledgement meant. They thought that meant that we were saying that's my land, like get off of it or something. But that's not what the land acknowledgement's about. It's more about like who lived there, you know, and whose bones are there under that ground, what bloodshed has happened there, because that doesn't go away for some people. That's what that is. So we have a message in the chat by Vaughn. It says, I will say though, that there are other tribes here in Mendocino County. There are federally recognized and unrecognized tribes here. Yes. The link shows the recognized tribes, tribal acknowledgement, visit Mendocino County. That's a good point. Maybe there are some unrecognized tribes that are not even in that database or whatever, right? There are unrecognized tribes in California, for sure. Let's see. So does anyone want to have a chance to introduce themselves that hasn't had a chance yet before we move forward? Okay. All right. At 11 o'clock, we'll take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back to the Zoom. All right. So structure of Cultural Awareness Committee. We have a note taker already. So it says note taker, observer, planning committee. Note taker, that's our AI. I don't know if any of you guys are taking notes on the meeting, but we do have a AI that takes notes for us. They're actually really good notes in the end of it all. So there's that. Whoever would like to be an observer and, you know, catch up with me later, give me some feedback on what you've seen in the meeting, what you didn't see, what you hope to see in the meeting, that'd be great as well. I know we don't really need like a planning committee, but I feel like all by myself without having like a team of you to help me with these ideas and thoughts that we want to use to move forward. I would like to know if some of you do feel like dedicated to this type of engagement, to where we can continue meeting, even if it's quarterly, at just these meetings, or meet in between time, so that we can kind of get a plan in motion of how we're gonna move forward with respecting culture. Yeah. Any thoughts, anybody?
Happy.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Megan.
I was just gonna say, I'm happy to help however I can. I don't want my voice to be centered in any way in this, so I will be your support and whatever you need. I'm happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
And I do recognize as well that this is for Lake County. And while I'm residing in Mendocino County and I'm still new to the communities here. I will say maybe one thing that can help is sometimes people don't even know what they don't know, and recognizing some stuff that they're still trying to understand. And even just like sometimes making a list of, I don't understand this, and always just trying to come from a place of I guess good judgment. People, we all come from different walks of life, different generations, so just giving people the benefit of the doubt when they ask certain things. And of course, still having accountability for some things that probably not, just, sorry, I'm rambling, but like just recognizing what people are still learning on, and then having a conversation about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, just having the balance in having a sound judgment and knowing when people are really asking questions, but also holding people accountable when they're being rude or something like that.
Yeah.
If that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Raven,
Yeah.
this is Connie.
Yeah. Hi, Connie.
I think too, sometimes when people share their perspective of what they see or know, and it's the first time you might hear that, I think it's really important to try and be understanding, because a lot of times this is the first time that we are able to give voice to what we see, and it's not intended to offend anybody, but to try and help people understand from our perspective what we see as challenges may not be seen by others as challenges. And that's where sometimes what we recommend isn't made to be offensive, but to create awareness. And so my experience has been sometime when we try and educate people that it offends them, and so then that starts a disconnect. But I think in this work, when we talk about cultural competency, that means different things to a lot of people. And so sometimes when we're explaining things, it isn't meant to offend anyone, but to share a perspective in the best way we know. And I know a lot of times I get challenged because I'm trying to share a perspective that isn't generally known. And so when it's said, it sounds different, I guess, because they haven't heard it said that way before. But if we're looking at trying to express what is, how would you say, what can be more appropriate, sometimes that can sound offensive, but it isn't intended. So I think that's the other thing, is giving individuals who are sharing their culture the benefit of understanding and not necessarily having to respond. So I think that's another thing, because sometimes because we don't know, when we find out, it can feel, I guess, offensive. But I think that's another thing, is to allow what has to be said, and not take offense, because it's said, at least from my experience, by people who want to share something that's been very difficult for them too over a period of time. So sometimes that feedback may sound negative or hostile or whatever, but I think if we're asking people to share their thoughts, then what they say we can't take, personally. So I think that's another experience I want to share, because sometimes when we're sharing things with people, they get highly offended, and it creates another level of tension, another level of disconnect, and we can't move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. I see your hand up, Denise.
Hi, I found myself an experience. I was in group one time and I offended a participant without intent. And when we do things like that, I think sometimes saying too much can also just like falling over ourselves. And what I said was, it was a very enlightening experience, because I had said, "Oh, happy 4th of July. How was everybody's 4th of July?" And one of the participants said, "I don't celebrate it. Why should I celebrate when my land, something that took my land away?" And it was a very humbling experience for me, because it was like, I did not mean to offend, and it actually enlightened me and educated me on the fact that, on some things. And I didn't want to overtalk it and say too much, but an apology, and it was, like I said, it was a humbling experience and a learning experience.
Thank you for sharing that, Denise. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, putting yourself out there like that and saying you've had that experience. That's huge. And I say that's huge because for some reason in the communities we live in, sometimes it's not a norm to own our stuff, or to be like, hey, you know what, I made a mistake there, or like, hey, how can I do that differently next time? Sometimes we gotta kind of, humble ourselves a little bit and be like, oh, I think I made a mistake there, maybe I could do it different next time. Like, I do that a lot too. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's important to hear what people have to say and how people feel about, where they've been and what they've gone through and are still going through. Sometimes when things are going good, like for me personally, right? So things are going good for me in my own life. I went to school, I graduated, I'm not on the streets anymore, or I'm not living, rough, struggling anymore, right? So I think life is really great. Well, not for everybody, right? And it's easy to get focused in on my life being great, everything's so good in my life, but then we think, oh, well, everybody must be doing great. Not necessarily, not everybody is doing great. Like, we work in this field because people aren't doing great. And so there's a lot of people that still need us out there. It's still not working out there for them, whatever we thought was going to work wasn't working, is still not working. There's still things that we need to overcome. There's still barriers like racism, microaggressive behaviors, division, things like that we still need to keep on working through, and get through. And so I appreciate, you guys checking in with yourselves and seeing what that looks like for you. I see a couple of people just jumped on. Do you guys want to share what you do and what culture means to you? How about you, Adrian? I didn't hear anything from you yet. You want to speak? No? Okay, all right. Let's see. Okay. So is there any, so I heard Megan, you said you would always be here. Vaughn, I heard you saying you were from Mendocino County. So sometimes we do things with Mendocino County. Like there's times that we try to gather and do some type of events and things like that, for Lake and Mendocino, Sonoma County, or whatever. So I'm glad you're here. And just because you're from Mendo don't mean you don't belong here. You belong here too. Yeah, someone put in the chat, Scott Abbott. he wrote, NCO covers both Mendocino and Lake counties. Yes, and like many of us wear many hats, right? We wear a lot of different hats, and sometimes we are covering Lake and Mendocino and Sonoma counties in different aspects and things like that. So that's welcome here too.
Raven, this is Connie again. I think it's really wonderful that happened, because one of the things about our tribal communities is we have relatives in lakes and, well, in quite a few counties, but it's really wonderful because it follows where our, say, our Pomo groups are in Lake, Sonoma, and Mendocino County. So really, if we're talking about how do we help our families, it's understanding how family makeup is too, and that it, you know, it isn't just divided by county lines. We want to look at it in terms of how it spreads out and what those different services in different counties can do for our family members once we're aware of it. So that's wonderful that there are people from Mendocino County, because we have family members over there in Mendocino. So the people learning from there are going to know what we know in Lake County. So this again is an example of a cultural perspective, in that those lines don't divide us. And so we're hoping that the services have some continuity in them, so that if we are experiencing something in Lake County, that we can let our families know that in Mendocino County there's someone there. So just a perspective I'm sharing from a cultural perspective. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That brings up a scholarly written article that I, when I was studying, there was this article I used. It was called, "We Didn't Cross the Border Crossed Us." And what that's about is, before those borders were set, no matter, you know, locally, countywide, statewide, whatever, before those lines were set, people were migrating and navigating through their territory. There was like a whole grounds for hunting, and they didn't gather there. They only hunted there. And then if you go way over here, there's like acres and acres of gathering where they gathered there. And you go over here, there's there was, they had their areas of what they did for different seasons, different times, and things like that. And that goes back to way back, you know, and when we did, you know, have these borders set up, it was like, okay, you can only be over here, but then it's like way over there or whatever, that's where they hunted at. So they couldn't get to their hunting grounds. They could only stay in this land right here. So that put a division on them being able to access all the things that they did. So that's something that I know it's not really talked about. Another thing too that just came up lately, someone had shared with me, I think it was you, Connie, shared that one of the question was, why are Native American tribal reservations so far in the outskirts of land, like in the outskirts of town? And I was told that it was meant to be that way on purpose, so that natives couldn't come into town and bother them and stuff. So that was one of the reasons why natives were like separated really far and placed out of town really far, so that they couldn't navigate into towns and stuff. Do you want to share a little bit about that, Connie?
Well, thank you, Raven. I think one of the ways that we can relate to that is looking at the effects of social isolation. And I believe that social isolation is one of the, how would you say, practices that governing bodies take to maintain their positions. So that happened during the time that they began to purchase land for tribal people, was to make sure that there was a distance where they wouldn't come into town and bother people. And so there's more to that, but again, it's a practice that really has overt outcomes. And that social isolation is part of why there isn't, how would you say, integration of our tribal communities, because they're set out far away. Some rancherias or reservations are 60 to 80 miles from any townships, and that was done on purpose to keep Indians out of the towns. So there's a lot of other types of social impact that isolation has, especially for children as they grow and develop. So those are some of the things that create lifelong challenges as children aren't, young people and youth aren't integrated into mainstream. And so there aren't provisions to address that. So for example, you won't see many transportation providers out on tribal land, and you won't see like taxi cab services, those kinds of services. And so if you even look at Lake County, how we're situated, you'll see that the rancherias are located outside of townships. So just an observation, there's more I could share on that in more of the effects of social isolation. And we see that effects of social isolation in the statistics, the high infant mortality, morbidity, the low graduation achievements, the low education achievements, so on and so forth. So it's reflected in the statistics, and it's related specifically to that challenges of social isolation. So that's just one of the areas I wanted to share, but I could share more, later on.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any comments about what we're talking about right now before we move on? Okay. All right, one of the topics, another thing that I wanted to discuss was in the future, there's, I think NCOs might be familiar with this, work first, or what's it called? Workforce, there's gonna be an initiative coming out, right? And it's called, like workforce first or something like that. I forgot exactly what it's called, excuse me. But it's where they're gearing towards making sure employment is diverse and incoming employees there's like a, diverse, it's going to be like an equal inclusion for many different backgrounds to come in to work. If you notice, like there may be one or two natives where you work, or something like that. The initiative is about providing more opportunity for diverse populations to be able to get into the workforce, just as well as anyone else or whatever. But that's something that's going to be coming up, and I'm so sorry that I can't remember the name of it. But it is a grant that's going to be out soon. And so I wanted to does anyone know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this? Has anyone heard about that?
Virtually, I wish I have to, but I will find out through the director.
Okay.
Get back to that.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then what does inclusive mean? Like, what does inclusion mean for you? Like, how do you provide inclusivity in your workplace where you are? On any level.
Just even how we have like buildings, also inclusivity, like artwork, signs that make it more welcoming to people, how we carry ourselves, and just even saying hi, good morning, or hi, how are you, or even offering someone just water or something to drink, something to eat, and just getting to know them a little bit, because even if they're there on business, it's like we're still human, and also recognizing that just even if someone doesn't respond or anything, just like, okay, that's it, things like that. Just make it comfortable, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. So I did put a poll together. Let me see if I could pull it up for you guys really quick. There's 3 questions. I'm gonna send it out right now and just, you know, fill it out or whatever. It's a few little questions. There it is. Did you guys get it? Oh.
While people are doing that, I just want to make a comment on inclusion as well. Um, it's a lot more than just having an open door, especially for a lot of marginalized people who have historically been left out of conversations. It's not super welcoming just to say, well, you could join us. Whereas if we can actually do outreach and really work with people and say like, no, we want your voice to be heard. That's inclusion to me.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Thank you.
I think learning about all the different cultures that are up and around us would be amazing too. It's the understandability, if that's even a word, type of situation. I would love to know more about you, just like I'm sure you would love to know more about me. But how do we make that inclusive?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think what it's a good start with like our peer support centers, like how we have the Circle of Native Minds there. That's a good start. Like I noticed a lot of inclusion there. Also, I think it would be great for us to have I have it on the agenda today, for a new peer support center, a cultural peer support center for our African American peoples, our African American brothers and sisters, you know. I don't see a peer support center for African American people in Lake County.
There
And
is not one.
yeah, there's not. And I think it would be awesome for us to learn more about how we can help to develop one. And that's what I was going to bring up today for this team. And I spoke with my director about it, and she's talking about maybe going to the Mental Health Services Act meetings, to the stakeholder meetings and presenting it there. So I think that's something I'm going to do. And whoever would like to be on board with that project that'd be awesome too. I think, I'm not sure if everyone finished answering the questions yet. Okay, so I'll just start going over them anyways. Do you think it is necessary to have more cultural training? 85% agree and 15% agree. Strongly agree, 85%. Agree, 15%. Okay. Question 2, how do you define culture? 85% of people say is a big part of my life. 8% say not a big part of my life, and 8% say sometimes it's a big part, which is okay, you know. Do I have a family member, friends, co-workers, or myself that advocates for cultural planning in the community? 82% say yes, and 18% say no. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any comments on the poll? Did you guys get to see the poll yet? Or did I just share it?
It's sharing.
Okay. Oh, you missed the 3 questions. Sorry about that. I guess I could have took more time.
It's pretty interesting when we go on to the map. And you click on the native, what was it, the native lands, and it takes you to languages or territories or treaties, and I haven't myself, but has anybody ever read a treaty?
Oh, I've researched pretty much all of them, I believe. The
Really?
timeline of treaties, they're pretty horrific, and they're really yeah, none of them were abided by, so it's kind of like it was really difficult to watch documentaries on it, like are people dealing with it and things like that. Um let's see.
Have there been any updates on them?
Not lately, but I would like to see some. But I could look more into that as well. Yeah. There is a video that maybe when you guys come back, I'll have you guys watch this video. And it talks about a few treaties in there. But I think I show the video a lot. I really think it's really I think it's helpful for people to understand why it's still important to us to talk about culture and to talk about coming away from the harm that's been done, in the past. And it has a lot to do with treaties and stuff. We could take a break and come back at 11:10, if that's okay. You can go ahead and leave your Zoom link up or whatever. I'm just gonna turn off my video and mute. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Raven.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, let's see here. So is there any comments on what we've discussed so far already? You could share whatever you like. Okay. Any comments? Okay. All right, I'm gonna start showing the video. It's called America's Native Prisoners of War by Aaron Huey. And so I'm gonna show this video. I hope you are all back. I'm not sure if you are all back yet. But if you are, we're gonna start the video.
Therapy for me came at a time that was really pivotal. Becoming a new father, I needed.
Raven, you're muted. And I think you need to share your screen.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You went silent. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm getting it ready. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Let me know if you can't hear it or something, okay? Can you guys see the video so far? All right, cool. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna play it again and let me know if you can hear it, just like some thumbs up if you can hear
I heard it pretty good.
Okay, all right, here we go.
I'm here today to show my photographs of the Lakota. Now, many of you may have heard of the Lakota, or at least the larger group of tribes called the Sioux. The Lakota are one of many tribes that were moved off their land to prisoner of war camps, now called reservations. The Pine Ridge Reservation, the subject of today's slideshow, is located about 75 miles southeast of the Black Hills in South Dakota. It is sometimes referred to as prisoner of war camp number 334, and is where the Lakota now live. Now, if any of you have ever heard of AIM, the American Indian Movement, or of Russell Means, or Leonard Peltier, or of the standoff at Oglala, then you know that Pine Ridge is ground zero for Native issues in the US. So I've been asked to talk a little bit today about my relationship with the Lakota, and that's a very difficult one for me, because if you haven't noticed from my skin color, I'm white, and that is a huge barrier on a Native reservation. You'll see a lot of people in my photographs today, and I've become very close with them, and they've welcomed me like family. They've called me brother and uncle, and invited me again and again over 5 years. But on Pine Ridge, I will always be what is called Washichu. And Washichu is a Lakota word that means non-Indian, but another version of this word means the one who takes the best meat for himself. And that's what I want to focus on, the one who takes the best part of the meat. It means greedy. So take a look around this auditorium today. We are at a private school in the American West, sitting in red velvet chairs with money in our pockets. And if we look at our lives, we have indeed taken the best part of the meat. So let's look today at a set of photographs of a people who lost so that we could gain. And know that when you see these people's faces, that these are not just images of the Lakota. They stand for all Indigenous people. On this piece of paper is the history the way I learned it from my Lakota friends and family. The following is a timeline of treaties made, treaties broken, and massacres disguised as battles. I'll begin in 1824. What is known as the Bureau of Indian Affairs was created within the War Department, setting an early tone of aggression in our dealings with the Native Americans. 1851, the first Treaty of Fort Laramie was made, clearly marking the boundaries of the Lakota Nation. According to the treaty, those lands are a sovereign nation. If the boundaries of this treaty had held, and there is a legal basis that they should, then this is what the U.S. would look like today. 10 years later, the Homestead Act, signed by President Lincoln, unleashed a flood of white settlers into native lands. 1863, an uprising of Santee Sioux in Minnesota ends with the hanging of 38 Sioux men, the largest mass execution in U.S. history. The execution was ordered by President Lincoln only 2 days after he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. 1866, the beginning of the Transcontinental Railroad, a new era. We appropriated land for trails and trains to shortcut through the heart of the Lakota Nation. The treaties were out the window. In response, 3 tribes led by the Lakota chief Red Cloud attacked and defeated the U.S. Army many times over. I want to repeat that part. The Lakota defeat the U.S. Army. 1868, the Second Fort Laramie Treaty clearly guarantees the sovereignty of the Great Sioux Nation and the Lakota's ownership of the sacred Black Hills. The government also promises land and hunting rights in the surrounding states. We promise that the Powder River country will henceforth be closed to all whites. The treaty seemed to be a complete victory for Red Cloud and the Sioux. In fact, this is the only war in American history in which the government negotiated a peace by conceding everything demanded by the enemy. 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. It began carrying, among other things, large numbers of hunters who began the wholesale killing of buffalo, eliminating a source of food, clothing, and shelter for the Sioux. 1871, the Indian Appropriation Act makes all Indians wards of the federal government. In addition, the military issued orders forbidding Western Indians from leaving reservations. All Western Indians at that point in time were now prisoners of war. Also in 1871, we ended the time of treaty making. The problem with treaties is that they allow tribes to exist as sovereign nations, and we can't have that. We had plans. 1874, General George Custer announced the discovery of gold in Lakota territory, specifically the Black Hills. The news of gold creates a massive influx of white settlers into the Lakota Nation. Custer recommends that Congress find a way to end the treaties with the Lakota as soon as possible. 1875, the Lakota War begins over the violation of the Fort Laramie Treaty. 1876, on July 26th, on its way to attack a Lakota village, Custer's 7th Cavalry was crushed at the Battle of the Little Bighorn.
There's one simple vision hack anyone can use to improve vision, so you can say goodbye to your optometrist for good.
1877, the great Lakota warrior-in-chief named Crazy Horse surrendered at Fort Robinson. He was later killed while in custody. 1877 is also the year we found a way to get around the Fort Laramie treaties. A new agreement was presented to Sioux chiefs and their leading men under a campaign known as Sell or Starve. Sign the paper or no food for your tribe. Only 10% of the adult male population signed. The Fort Laramie Treaty called for at least 3/4 of the tribe to sign away land. That clause was obviously ignored. 1887, the Dawes Act. Communal ownership of reservation lands ends. Reservations are cut up into 160-acre sections and distributed to individual Indians, with a surplus disposed of. Tribes lost millions of acres. The American dream of individual land ownership turned out to be a very clever way to divide the reservation until nothing was left. The move destroyed the reservations, making it easier to further subdivide and to sell with every passing generation. Most of the surplus land and many of the plots within reservation boundaries are now in the hands of white ranchers. Once again, the the fat of the land goes to Washichu. 1890, a date I believe to be the most important in this slideshow. This is the year of the Wounded Knee Massacre. On December 29th, US troops surrounded a Sioux encampment at Wounded Knee Creek and massacred Chief Bigfoot and 300 prisoners of war using a new rapid-fire weapon that fired exploding shells called a Hotchkiss gun. For this so-called battle, 20 Congressional Medals of Honor for valor were given to the 7th Cavalry. To this day, this is the most Medals of Honor ever awarded for a single battle. More Medals of Honor were given for the indiscriminate slaughter of women and children than for any battle in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, or Afghanistan. The Wounded Knee Massacre is considered the end of the Indian Wars. Whenever I visit the site of the mass grave at Wounded Knee, I see it not just as a grave for the Lakota or for the Sioux, but as a grave for all Indigenous peoples. The holy man Black Elk said, "I did not know then how much was ended. When I look back now from this high hill of my old age, I can still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch. As plain as when I saw them with eyes still young. And I can see that something else died there in the bloody mud and was buried in the blizzard. A people's dream died there, and it was a beautiful dream." With this event, a new era in Native American history began. Everything can be measured before Wounded Knee and after, because it was in this moment, with the fingers on the triggers of the Hotchkiss guns, that the US government openly declared its position on Native rights. They were tired of treaties. They were tired of sacred hills. They were tired of ghost dances. They were tired of all the inconveniences of the Sioux. So they brought out their cannons. "You want to be an Indian now?" they said, finger on the trigger. (1900), the US Indian population reached its low point, less than 250,000, compared to an estimated 8 million in 1492. Fast forward, 1980, the longest running court case in US history, the Sioux Nation versus the United States, was ruled upon by the US Supreme Court. The court determined that when the Sioux resettled onto reservations and 7 million acres of their land were opened up to prospectors and homesteaders, the terms of the Second Fort Laramie Treaty had been violated. The court stated that the Black Hills were illegally taken and that the initial offering price plus interest should be paid to the Sioux Nation. As payment for the Black Hills, the court awarded only $106 million to the Sioux Nation. The Sioux refused the money with the rallying cry, "The Black Hills are not for sale." 2010, statistics about Native population today, more than a century after the massacre at Wounded Knee, reveal the legacy of colonization, forced migration, and treaty violations. Unemployment on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation fluctuates between 85% and 90%. The housing office is unable to build new structures, and existing structures are falling apart. Many are homeless, and those with homes are packed into rotting buildings with up to 5 families. 39% of homes on Pine Ridge have no electricity. At least 60% of the homes on the reservation are infested with black mold. More than 90% of the population lives below the federal poverty line. The tuberculosis rate on Pine Ridge is approximately 8 times higher than the US national average. The infant mortality rate is the highest on this continent and is about 3 times higher than the US national average. Cervical cancer is 5 times higher than the US national average. The school dropout rate is up to 70%. Teacher turnover is 8 times higher than the US national average. Frequently, grandparents are raising their grandchildren because parents, due to alcoholism, domestic violence, and general apathy cannot raise them. 50% of the population over the age of 40 suffers from diabetes. The life expectancy for men is between 46 and 48 years old, roughly the same as Afghanistan and Somalia. The last chapter in any successful genocide is the one in which the oppressor can remove their hands and say, "My God, what are these people doing to themselves? They're killing each other. They're killing themselves while we watch them die." This is how we came to own these United States. This is the legacy of Manifest Destiny. Prisoners are still born into prisoner of war camps long after the guards are gone. These are the bones left after the best meat has been taken. A long time ago, a series of events was set in motion by a people who look like me, by Washichu, eager to take the land and the water and the gold in the hills. Those events led to a domino effect that has yet to end. As removed as we, the dominant society, may feel from a massacre in 1890 or a series of broken treaties 150 years ago, I still have to ask you the question, how should you feel about the statistics of today? What is the connection between these images of suffering and the history that I just read to you? And how much of this history do you need to own even? Is any of this your responsibility today? I have been told that there must be something we can do. There must be some call to action. Because for so long I've been standing on the sidelines, content to be a witness, just taking photographs. Because the solution seems so far in the past, I needed nothing short of a time machine to access them. The suffering of indigenous peoples is not a simple issue to fix. It's not something everyone can get behind, the way they get behind helping Haiti, or ending AIDS, or fighting a famine. The fix, as it's called, may be much more difficult for the dominant society than, say, a $50 check, or a church trip to paint some graffiti-covered houses, or a suburban family donating a box of clothes they don't even want anymore. So where does that leave us? Shrugging our shoulders in the dark? The United States continues on a daily basis to violate the terms of the 1851 and 1868 Fort Laramie treaties with the Lakota. The call to action I offer today, my TED wish, is this: honor the treaties, give back the Black Hills. It's not your business what they do with them.
So, any comments on that video? A lot to take in, it really is. Yeah, I think when I first watched that video, it was a few years ago, and I decided to use that in a few different projects I had, because the way it hit me. But I also know that when people come from diverse backgrounds and things like that, or even caring for, someone that's diverse or something, there's a part of us that lives in us, that what we just discussed, it lives in our blood. And so we always want to do something about it. We're always motivated to try to make some type of movement to bring some social justice to the table. I see a hand up. Go ahead, Vaughn.
Hi. Also, please let me know if I'm like talking too much or something. I don't want to like
You can't
take any.
talk too much in this meeting.
Okay. I'm not native, as far as I am aware, but it really reminded me of the colonization of the Philippines and what is currently known as Mexico by the Spaniards, or the Spain, basically. And it brought up a lot of those feelings and how a lot of the different indigenous groups, their culture is lost. My culture is still lost because it's so hard to identify. So I don't know what it's like to be Native, but I still feel like there's a connection of losing something that you didn't even know you had, not you being able to trace it back, and just the continuation of being forcibly assimilated, and just all the horrible stuff that's still going on.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I really like the way he explained why this all still affects Native people. One of the biggest things that I feel like we hear from people who don't want to learn is that, they're not the ones who did it, and it's not, there's nothing to do or nothing to change anymore. It's already happened. But when it's put in this context, it really helps understand or clarify why things that did happen in the 1800s are still heavily affecting people to this day.
Thank you, Megan. That's so true. It's a really huge discussion, and it's like I know one of my Caucasian sisters, she shared before, and she said, it's not your job to explain this. It's my job. That's my responsibility as a Caucasian woman. It's my job to share with my people what needs to be done, how we could take responsibility. And I really appreciate when she said that, because coming from me, it could be taken differently because I'm not Caucasian, and maybe it does need to be heard more from Caucasians, this type of advocacy. I'm going to paste the link in the chat. So there's a link to that video that we watched. Let me see. Is there any more comments on the video we watched? Did you get anything out of it? Did you see it before? Some of you may have seen it before. Was it shocking? Go ahead.
I would just say this, that, like I said, people are still putting their heads in the sand about this and ignoring and pretending that it's not there, and standing back and saying, well, peoples can change their lives if they want to in this day and age. But what the people that are saying that don't realize is this is basically the society we created that we want to stand back and ridicule on, because we had a hand in how Native Americans have still living on reservations and stuff like that. We forced them to be there, and then now nobody wants to give help and offer change. It's just very condescending, and it's that was very enlightening for me, and it was very moving. I lived there with my brother is Native American from the Orville area, and as I was growing up, my first years, I was on land like that, where and it wasn't abnormal to me. It was normal because that's where I was, and nobody was there to tell me that it should be any different. And then seeing that now just brought back some childhood memories for me. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you. Oh, it definitely brought back childhood memories for me as well. Like, I grew up on an old res until I was 12, and then we moved to a newer res or whatever. But growing up on the old res was just like that. And I mean, we're watching this video. He's talking about the Sioux Nation, the Lakota peoples. The thing is that, like he said, it affects us all in the United States. Like, all of us indigenous. All the tribes were built on, had to grow from that right there, what we just seen. I know that I have had to grow up in those circumstances. Thank you. Are there any more comments? I do see some Native sisters over there at the Cultural Center. If you guys have any comments you want to share, that'd be great. But you're on mute though.
We're just taking it all in, Raven.
Okay, all right. You guys want to introduce yourself a little bit? Talk about what you do or who you are.
I'm Monica Anderson. I'm from Robinson. I'm here just to check it out.
Right on. Thank you.
She used to come to my house to visit when I was about 6 years, 7 years old.
My cousin.
Yeah, when she was a kid, I was with African friends, and they used to come over and visit me every so often.
That's cool. I'm Adrienne. I'm the cultural specialist here at the Circle of Native Minds, and I'm just listening and taking it in, and I'll have something to say towards the end.
Yeah, all right, thank you. All right, so another thing, so let me put this video. Okay. So another thing that we were going to discuss also, so it's 11:36, we're getting pretty close to 12. Other things on the agenda were cultural events in the community. What type of cultural events are coming up, or what type of cultural events you want to see in the community, and how other organizations and agencies can participate. Yeah. You guys have any ideas or any cultural events coming up that you want to discuss, maybe with your agency, community, organization, or anything like that? I could say there's a few cultural events coming up, and they're geared towards helping the youth. So there's one going to be in the end of March. That one's going to be for Lake and Mendocino. And it's going to be held at the Hopland Reservation. And I'm going to probably put a flyer out at some point once it's created to all of you here and to our community for Lake and Mendocino County. It's going to be called a youth summit. So you might have some youth in the area that might want to go, or you might want to, volunteer, or, provide some services, or have a booth there or something like that. That would be good. So there's that. And then we're trying to get a youth summit over here in Lake County. I'm hoping to hold it at the new park in Lakeport, and hopefully give out a bunch of raffle prizes to the kids, like skateboards and bikes and things like that they could use there in that new park. Since I don't know exactly who has went to the historical trauma training that I had done before. I did a historical trauma training and provided training for over 150 professionals. And there was many different types of peoples there. There were CWS workers, probation officers, and a lot of people from organizations, agencies, our elders, our tribal communities, our tribes. And it was really good turnout. And so I was discussing this with someone, and they were saying they wanted something geared towards youth. And so we're going to be working on that soon too. And we'll probably need volunteers and stuff like that. So let me know if you guys want to volunteer. And so I also wanted to ask, what do you guys think about a cultural peer support center for our African-American brothers and sisters? Do you guys think that would be great in the community? And is that something that you want to be part of?
Yeah, we can support that.
All right.
And the youth, and if you're gonna do a youth summit in Lake County, the circle can also support that as well.
Okay. All right. And so one of the ones that are the one that's going to be held in Hopland It's gonna be for Native youth from Lake and Mendocino County. So if the Circle of Native Minds wants to have a booth there, or, you know, that'd be great too.
Yeah, definitely. Just get us information and we'll have something set up.
And it's not just for Native kids also, because we want to have respect for recognized tribes, unrecognized peoples. You know, we want to like make it more inclusive. It's going to have a cultural base to it, but you don't have to be from a tribe to attend, or your kids do not have to be from a tribe to attend. I just wanted to make that clear.
I think that's awesome too.
Does anyone have any, so is there any more comments on the Cultural Peer Support Center for African American brothers and sisters?
So how would we go about supporting them, get that started? Like what's the protocol on that?
So the first thing we're gonna need to do is attend the next Mental Health Services Act meeting and present it there, or to have open that discussion there and then go from there.
And do they have or do we have a location in mind, or?
Well, I thought maybe in I don't know, to be honest, like I don't know, because I would rather get some input from our brothers and sisters, our African American brothers and sisters, on what they thought would be best and where that would be, like what would be best.
Are you gonna have like a town hall meeting or something to see, get some ideas, or see if, you know, what
the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk to Scott Abbott. He's here today. I'm gonna talk to Scott Abbott about us presenting in the Mental Health Services Act meeting.
Okay.
And see and start working on that process.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's on March 20. I wrote it down.
It's March 28th.
March 28th. And you'll be sending out a Zoom link for them for this too, Patricia?
Yes, actually we have a flyer I'm going to be sending out next week, and then there will be invitations being sent out probably about 2 weeks before, 2 weeks to a week before the meeting, with Zoom links and agendas and all of that stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Patricia. All right. If you guys want to keep in contact with me, or if you need my phone number or my email, just let me know. Let's see.
Before we all sign off, I just wanted to, I wasn't quick enough when we were talking about it before, but the Middletown Art Center does a lot of cultural events. Right now, they're working with RCS to do a multicultural mural. They did the mural here in Upper Lake, that's, I think it's at the middle school, that was with Pomo youth artists. And that is, I mean, if you haven't gone to see it yet, it is absolutely gorgeous. And then they also are doing things like Beautiful Roots, which is, I believe, specifically like Hispanic cultural art exhibit that's coming up right now. And they're really focused on trying to do more cultural education in our community.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Kara's not with us today, but Kara was in our last meeting, and what she had offered was that they can pay the youth also, and it's for diverse the diverse youth, and they will pay the youth, and they will do a mural with them, feed them lunch, and they have a lot of funding in that area for murals, things like that.
Yeah, so my name is Sierra. I'm actually the youth development specialist here at RCS, and I work with Kara on these projects. So the one that we're doing with Lower Lake High School is with a club called Club Amigos. And so we're trying to get that to culturally represent club. We're also working currently with Kelseyville High School and their Native American club to bring a mural to that school as well. And then we have a few other projects going on with different groups around the.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I don't know if you remember Randall Cole
Yeah.
that used to work here, I'm pretty sure. He is super big in the African American community. We totally just missed all the Black History Month stuff that was just out. They did a couple presentations over at the college and a couple other things, but I think we're on the late freight as far as being able to participate in some stuff like that. But he definitely would be a great contact for us, and he can kind of give us some general ideas on how to get started and going with what we're up to if we need it. So
that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. I think his situation is called the coal train.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that, Monty. Yeah, I will get in touch with him. If you want to get in touch with him too, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'm sure he'd be proud that we have this committee going on.
Yeah. I don't know if he got, I'm going to try to, either me or you, Monty, we'll try to make sure he gets a link to the next one.
Absolutely.
The next one will be in, I think is it April, Patricia?
The next cultural, let me just check
Or
my
May?
calendar. I have them 3 different types of meetings every. I think the next one after this is going to be May. Oh, geez, I skipped it. Hold on. May 23rd.
Okay.
Same time, of course. We try to block out the same block of time for all of these meetings.
Okay. Yeah, and so maybe we can work on having a little bit more information, and any of you that do want to participate more than just this one meeting quarterly in the cultural aspect of things and moving things forward, we could always set up special meetings and stuff like that. So is there any more comments? Any closing comments? One takeaway from our meeting today? Okay, I'll go around the Zoom room and call them.
Thank you for having us. It was, I want to continue to come to these and connect with all of you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate that video you shared. That TED Talk was really impactful.
Thank you.
Raven, can I share something real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. With the, my name is Melissa, everyone. I work for Lake County Behavioral Health Services, and my main department is the Lake County Continuum of Care. And what we end up doing is assisting those who are experiencing homelessness. This is a COC analyst tool for race and ethnicity. And here is our community. So if we look at this information right here, we can kind of see like the number of people that we have in Lake County, and then it breaks it down by race and ethnicity. When we look over at this section, then we start looking at the state of California information here. If by reading this tool, what we can do is really kind of look at the disparities that we end up having here in Lake County. And as it stands, based on census data, we have a total of 2% individuals identifying as being Black, African American, or African, and a 3% identifying as American Indian, Alaska Native, or Indigenous. And then somehow with this tool, what we can see when we look at like experiencing homelessness, we have 2% of the 2% that are being served within the Black, African American, and African communities. And then we have 38 of the 3% being served when it comes to the American Indian, Alaska Native, and Indigenous individuals. And those are our 2 main disparities here in Lake County. It ends up being our Native population and our Black and African American population.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, we did need to see a visual of that.
And that is for those that actually took the census. So sometimes we don't want to open up our door and give out our information.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is just the people, because that 2%, I don't think that's completely accurate. So sometimes we don't want to open the door and do the census, especially if some of our family members or people that are in our household are not legit, or whatever the reason may be. But I definitely think that there's more African Americans than that in this particular area, and most of a lot of the African Americans that I know in our local community are working just like me, and paying mortgage and bills and, all that good stuff too. So I would love to get behind some of that research and see exactly where the census came from. So I'm real interested now.
Well, that's good, Monty. Yeah. Go ahead, Melissa.
I think a lot of this really kind of boils down to how, as a community, we really need to start branching out and reaching out and trying to identify where these individuals are, especially within our homeless population.
Absolutely.
So we can make sure that we have services that are better equipped to distribute on an equitable playing field. And that's why I'm here at this meeting and participating in this, to really kind of push how Lake County can move forward in a more positive, better direction when it comes to just serving all of our people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just kind of want to go back to go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one question and I wanted to clarify, Melissa. So that 2%, is that specifically residents who participated in the pit count, so homeless residents 2%? Or is that saying that there's only 2% of residents in Lake County?
The way
overall?
that the data ends up kind of coming together, there's out of the 67,000 plus population that we have in Lake County, it is saying that 2% are African American, Black, or African. And of that 2%, only 2% are receiving services or are receiving services for being identified as homeless.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
I think that was something that was brought up at one of our MHSA meetings last year. It might have even been one of the tribal elders that brought it up as the part of the statistics being not accurate is that we, as a society, there's been a culture of distrust among those communities. They don't want to answer the questions about the demographics of their community, their family, all of that. So part of that was we have to kind of do that outreach and foster a kind of a culture of trust and acceptance and inclusion before we'll start to get accurate counts of who's even in Lake County. We get a lot of choose not to answer on those surveys. So
that brings up a good point. I did have surveys on here too, but we kind of went over, just kind of went on. Okay, so back to one of our first cultural meetings that we had last year, with me being chair, we were concerned about the numbers as well. And what came out of that was us beginning to develop a culturally sensitive survey for community. That's including maybe me and you could discuss it more, Monty, me, you, and Melissa and Patricia, Megan. We could discuss more, maybe Monty or someone taking the initiative to what is culturally sensitive, and then for me, I'm trying to take the initiative for what is culturally sensitive for my background. And then we could have people from different walks of life have their input on what does that look like, Like what kind of questions would be culturally appropriate to ask? Because I know that recently when we did the pit count, I was asked to go with RCS to Ilemres, which it wasn't probably, I was like, yeah, sure. But also it's taken years of respect to be able to walk on any res I want. I just don't get to walk up on someone's res or in someone's neighborhood without having earned that respect, and being treated like a human, right? Because if I come up with a badge and I'm formal, it's a pretty scary thing for some of our populations. And so I think it's important for some of us that do hold this space, to be employed, to be meeting at this table, that we can utilize the respect that we've gained in our communities to be able to say, hey, look, I'm bringing this to you and you could trust this because I'm telling you could trust it and you trust me, right? It takes that trust. And so when I went with RCS, it was really good that I was there because we were able to get a huge response when we were there. So with that being said, I'm hoping that we can collaborate those ideas moving forward with including like our diverse populations and our diverse peoples to sit at the table. Yeah. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, this is the first year that we've had such a large tribal affiliation within the pit count. And that's a huge step forward. So thank you for your assistance with that. I think it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we could continue doing more next year, getting more, Native sisters on board to go out there. They probably have a lot more numbers because they would trust those, Native sisters as, just like with any other community. As we've seen in the census that you showed us, we have a high percentage of Hispanics, and Latino. And, I think that we should at some point, we should shoot for a second peer support center, we have one over here in Clear Lake. But we also probably would need one over on like the other side, like by Lakeport or something too, or by Kelseyville, but that's like something that needs to be discussed further, right? We need to keep showing up at this table so that we can kind of make movement in that area as well. So I don't know. So I hope you guys are all on board with me. Yeah.
Yes, I love your ambition, and I want to be like you when I grow up. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We need one in Kelseyville. Thank you, Anna. So yeah, so I'm gonna start showing up more to the other meetings, the Mental Health Services Act meetings, and the other meetings, because there's other ones that come up. So it's Cultural Competency, Equity, and Social Justice Committee, 6 times a year, the third Wednesday from that's another meeting that I have to go to, but it's intertwined with what we're doing. So there's other places I take what we're talking about, I take it to other meetings as well, like the equity and inclusion, right? For our county, there's equity and inclusion. And I've been invited to one of those meetings like a week or 2 ago. I was not able to make it. So that's what I'm starting to focus on too, how to get involved with equity and inclusion for the county. Yeah. And there's also like state meetings as well that I'm gonna try to continue to get into. So
One day at a time, right, Raven?
yes, it's gonna take some time. Yeah. Do you have any comments, Blanca?
I don't have any comments, but I like that idea to open another Hispanic or Latino like an outreach thing here in Kelseyville.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anyone else have any more comments? I know there's some people that how about you, Anna, or Fireflies? That's a no.
Sorry, I'm pretty coffee today. I was just
I came on late. Sorry, I was taking care of a situation with the family, but you know, Lake County Tribal Health, Darnell Aparicio is doing a big push for the MMIP, and you know, I those are all events that we really need to highlight, right? We do, and then the Sunday right after we do Cinco de Mayo, and you know, we with Latinos United, as part of Latinos United, we're trying to to promote the Latino culture as best as we can with events like that. And I find that we overlap a lot with our tribal families, right? So it's a win-win, in the support is there, and I'm glad that this cultural competency or whatever committee is back, because we used to meet regularly, you know, years ago, and then all of a sudden just kind of faded away. So I'm glad to see that you have taken that up, Raven.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments before we go? All right, I hope to see you guys again. You can always reach out and hit me up or whatever. And I love discussing culture, so talk to me about it.
Also, for anyone who came in late or have colleagues that weren't able to attend at all, I'll be sending out the recording link for this meeting in a follow-up email, hopefully by this afternoon. Depends on how long it takes the recording to convert, but usually it's the same day. So I'll include information about the MHSA stakeholder meeting that's coming up at the end of next month, and anything else that Raven thinks I should include. But the recording will be available for anyone who didn't get to attend, so they can at least see what was discussed and everything. So
yeah. Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
All right, you guys have an awesome lunch. Have a great day. Talk to you later.
Thank you.